have roll call, please?
Councilmember White? Here. Councilmember Cook? Here. Councilmember Fairley?
Here.
Councilmember Osborne? Here. Councilmember Thomas?
Here.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item 4, presentations. Middle housing update presented by EJ Municipal. Okay. There's the troublemaker.
Good evening, Council. My name is John Greenwood. I work for EJ Municipal. We are your planning consultants, and with respect to the topic this evening, we have been hired to perform update to your municipal code with respect to housing, most specifically middle housing. And you'll find in your agenda packet a very brief memo regarding what's transpired to date, but we've been working on this for approximately 6 months. It is an amalgam of about a dozen housing bills that since, I think one of them as far back as 2020, but most of them from 2023 forward, have come out of Washington State Legislature and are required to be put into your code, or otherwise, with respect to mostly middle housing, what's referred to as the ordinance that the state has provided in general will rule, meaning that it will supersede what is in your code. So you either amend your code, or it will read the way that the Washington State template reads. So the city had decided it would like to amend its code to fit more properly with the rest of it, amend its housing code to fit more properly with the state code for state laws. So they acquired a grant to pay for the work that we are now performing. So what you have in front of you is the current version of the draft ordinance, red line, regarding what is being proposed to the Planning Commission. For purposes of clarity, this document you have in front of you does not include any input from the Planning Commission just yet. This is just for you to see what the first iteration looks like. And with a few minor, with a very few exceptions, everything in this document is regulatory. It is required from the state to be put into your code. Otherwise, it will still apply. It just won't show up in your code. For lack of a better phrase, residents won't be able to open up your municipal code and, through transparency purposes, see that it is a law. They'd have to search for it on the state's website, which is no good. So the few exceptions, policy-wise, that I have personally added into this document are some suggestions regarding user connection fees for development of your sewer and water system. Those are being reviewed by the city attorney, and there's also a policy decision on having ADUs not count towards density. Again, not required by the state, but having been here for about a year now, I've had about a dozen residents have issues with it currently counting as density, and as a result not being able to have ADUs. So we've talked with administration, they're supportive of it. It's been included in this. Everything else in here is required. So on May 1st, I met with the Planning Commission to go through the arduous process of reviewing this document, and they did have a number of comments, most of which were policy-driven, because again, there's not too much that can be done regarding changing the law since the state has already dictated what that's going to be. But they've made some suggested policy changes regarding certain things like the minimum maximum of size of an ADU, for instance. There were a number of suggestions and comments from, in particular, one planning commissioner regarding what was thought to be, unfortunately mistakenly, sections of codes that were being added to your housing ordinances. but in fact, upon further review, that already exists in your municipal code. So the city council and mayor, obviously, is up to them to amend their code to the degree they see fit. But for purposes of the discussion at hand, everything that you see in here that is, what I've gone through, put in red, that is what is being added or removed. Again, added is underlined, removed is stricken through. So, just giving you a quick update on where we are. We expect to come back to the Planning Commission shortly to address the comments, concerns, and clarify to them what we will be moving forward with and what we will not, because the funding for this project does not encapsulate generally updating your entire housing-related code, just mostly middle housing. And then we will have them provide final recommendations, findings of facts and conclusions of law, and come back to you for your 3 touches. And we suspect that this will be ready for your final adoption on or before June 30th. And the reason that date is important is because if not adopted by then, that state template goes into effect. If you miss that deadline, then we just pass it as soon as possible, and then it replaces whatever the state template says, the model code, if you will. So that is the plan of attack where we're moving towards right now. The 2 things that have been taken out of this municipal code, suggested provision of municipal code because of the challenge it represents, is House Bill 1293 as it relates to design review. So in this case, reviewing projects for whether or not they meet the city's idea of how it should be rightly designed. Not to be confused with development regulations, which is 10 feet here, 20 feet here. It's more like, well, you can have certain colors, or you can have a certain number of windows. Very different. The other item is more challenging, is permanent supportive and transitional housing. That was passed a few years back under HB 1220. That will be coming under a separate ordinance. It is required, and it is going to be a separate body of work, again, not funded by the state, but imposed upon you nonetheless, and we will try our best to help you and the Planning Commission find an amicable solution for fitting those requirements of the state in with your own municipal code. So at this point in time, again, want to be respectful of your time. Any questions or comments from the council?
Well, we got nothing but time, because you're the only one on our agenda today, so. I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
It's page 14.
Yes, sir.
The red line, the off-street vehicle parking spaces. Maybe it's page 16 or page 14. It's item C on the bottom. Square 16.
Okay. Off-street vehicle parking spaces.
So that was in our code, and now it's coming out of our code?
It is coming off of your code, that is correct.
Okay, and why is that? Because, I mean, there's only, half the, 10% of the residents have trailers, and now we're making it illegal to have a trailer on your property?
Do you mind if I crunch the dice just to make sure I'm reading the correct section?
Yeah.
It says subsection C.
Yeah.
So off-street parking, so why is that being removed?
Yeah, why is that being removed?
Parking, one moment, I'm just trying to search my memory. Off-street parking. One moment. I would have to look further into it, but I suspect that has to do with the fact that there is additional language on box number 18.
Okay.
That adds subsections J through O that further stipulates certain parking requirements, and that this is too restrictive for your code as it exists in comparison to state rules and regulations passed under Senate Bill, I think 1615. I will have to go back and check to give you a more poignant response to your inquiry, and I can provide that to administration so they can send that out as informational only to avoid any concerns with the OPMA, but I believe that's the reasoning right now. I'll double check Senate Bill 6015, which has to do with residential parking. One of the primary things that is pushed upon local jurisdictions, which may also influence this, is the fact that you cannot have certain requirements that are more restrictive for middle housing than they are for non-middle housing. Again, I want to make sure that I give you the best answer though, rather than just presume I've got it correctly. So I will have that to you in short order, probably tomorrow or the following day.
So how does HOAs manage this kind of stuff and more restrictive requirements
So-
within their homeowners association?
My understanding, and the other staff can jump in here in the event that I am misspeak. My understanding is that HOAs generally do not, they're not involved with code enforcement of city standards, and that HOA covenants are, CCC and ours, are more restrictive by their very nature than municipal code. So how they would enforce this is, were I on an HOA, simply say, well, my resident that's in my HOA is out of compliance with city code. I don't want to waste money as an HOA member. I'm going to contact code enforcement, Dean, over at the city, and stick him on the individual that's not complying with city code. That is how I suspect that would probably go. But it is not up to the HOA to enforce city regulations. That's up to the city.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Cherry Park was the only HOA that I know
I'm sorry?
of. Cherry Park was the only HOA that I know of, unless you know of other HOAs.
Yeah, they got cars all over the place too.
And what I will also mention too is your city attorney is currently in the process of reviewing this. Both Zach as well as their in-house expert, Drew, because housing is a very touchy subject right now. We suspect to hear back from them in the very near future, but at the same time, in order to streamline this process, SEPA review is currently being processed by the city staff. And this is how we hope to get this done in a timely fashion. But we do suspect that there will be some more questions at the next planning commission, which did have a public hearing, yet only one person attended. And I'm only aware of one comment that was received outside of that public comment, which is that height restrictions should be 26 feet, not 25 feet. But other than that, that is everything I have on this subject matter, besides possibly resolving some misinterpretation of current standing municipal code, which I have a tendency of doing on a case-by-case basis with individuals. Yes?
The off-street parking, like the one we were just talking about, is if you have a temporary or somebody comes in to visit, or you have a get-together and it's more cars than fit in here, and you park, say in my case, right in front of my house, which is on the easement, which is grass.
Mm-hmm.
Or how, is there a time frame?
So, hypothetically, you have, I believe it's under chapter 1026 or 1028, you have specific regulations regarding parking. And it is really dependent on your situation, like what's in your neighborhood. Because if you're right on the edge of a stop sign horn or something like that, or a fire hydrant, we know there's no parking signs and whatnot, but in general, if there are no regulations there on the side of the street, there's no safety concerns, no temporary construction or anything, my viewing of your code indicates that you can park there. Again, I'd want to take a look at 1026 or 28. I do not perform code enforcement for you, but that tends to be the situation. You need to park on the side of the street. Unless there's something else that prohibits you from doing it, then park on the side of the street, I would say.
There is the 72-hour parking limit, but other than that,
And license.
yes, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, everything else applying, it appears to be a non-issue.
Okay, I got one more question for you.
Yes, sir.
We're on square 16 and square 17, we go A, B, C, B, C, D. I mean, it's like we got two different pages. Am I missing something in between there, or?
So it goes from,
Yeah, they're not numerical anymore.
So I'm wondering if, is there a page out of order here, or am I?
It's A, there's A, and then it's
Yes.
subsection 1C, and then little a, and then B. This is what-
Yeah, but B should be.
yes, so at the top of square 16, it starts off with uppercase A subsection, then it goes 1, and then lowercase a, and then on 17, it goes back up to uppercase B. It's just a length thing.
Yeah. You would have thought that if you're gonna go 1, 2, and then some A, B, C, then if you started something new, it'd be 3.
Yeah, those are part of that section A.
I don't know.
Oh,
It's
is
just,
it?
it's just freaking confusing, so.
It's almost like you should break down all
There's a labor of love.
It's, you know, I pound nails for a living, I don't read computer stuff, so.
I usually review your code online where it's just continuous scrolling.
Yeah.
So very rarely, and same thing with Microsoft Word, very rarely do I see it in this format. It is confusing and not easy to read.
Just that this is the note, and this is all numbers up to here, and then B would be there.
I still don't like it. Parking spaces shall be used for automotive purposes. And that's old. If it's not red and it's not outlined, that's the old school. So
Yes,
there's no
pre-existing.
storage, no repair work, no dismantling.
Yes.
And that's on your private property, you can't work on your vehicles on your private property?
That is not my understanding, although that does state that you can't use required, we're talking on square 17, section C uppercase, parking spaces shall be used for automobile parking only with no sales, dead storage, repair work, or dismantling of any kind. We did have this discussion at the planning commission on May 1st. This should, to be more specific and clear, this should state required parking spaces. So when I say required parking spaces, I mean those parking spaces, minimum count, that your, in this case, home has to have under your land use code. So let's say I have a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom that I wish to develop and create. I do so, but I'm required under your land use code to have 2 parking spaces. I cannot use those 2 parking spaces for other purposes such that I now have to park one of my vehicles on the street and utilize public space for private use on a relatively permanent basis. So that is what that is.
Short term is okay, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. It's like, oh, I just need to take my, my car out of my garage, fix my oil or something, and get it back in. And I suspect that there's probably some type of, maybe a permit I'm not aware of, that might allow you to use something for longer than 72 hours. I don't know if that's an option in this city, but I've seen it in other cities. Generally speaking though, you can use your property for something that you're suggesting on a very temporary basis and then get back to normal, so to speak. But what the city, I believe, does not want to have happen per the way their code is written is that, let's say I have 2 parking spaces, non-garages, and I use that entire space to park both my boats. And as a result, I'm now parking my 2 personal vehicles on the side of the street for a private game in a public space. Any other questions I can address or?
Understood.
That's as clear as mud, thank you.
Yes,
No, I think I got it,
That's it.
thank you.
And my understanding, having spoken with your code enforcement officer, is that, previously in several occasions regarding this, is that right now, they're city council and mayor to make those changes as they see fit. And I can tell you, as your planning consultant, as deficiencies in code are discovered, we document those, and at a later point in time, or now, we go and make those modifications after having been reviewed by the city attorney. So,
Any other questions for John? Thank you, sir, I appreciate
I
it.
will be back with a less drafty version of the one we have now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll have those answers for you shortly,
Thank you.
regarding that section.
All right, nothing on discussion. Item 6, audience participation. The city council encourages public participation during meetings of the city council and welcomes your comment. It's time to set aside for you to speak to the city council on any issue. The council ordinarily takes non-agenda matters under advisement before taking action. You are also invited to comment on action items as they are considered during the meeting. Individual speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each in addressing the city council. When addressing the council, please speak clearly, audibly, state your name and address for the record. Do we have any